Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Okay, Friday, we made it. It's another week. What year is it? I don't. Somebody asked me how I was doing today, and I said, "What day is it?" Don't ask me how I'm doing. I told you folks, stop asking people how they're doing. I know it's a habit, and I'm trying to break it too. So I'm replacing mine with, "Are you hydrating?" I was at work today, downtown, and one of my coworkers, there was kind of a lot going on. People were running late. And I mean, I asked him how he was doing, and he like froze. Like he couldn't tell me the truth. He couldn't lie. He was absolutely paralyzed by what he really wanted to say. And that's such in contrast, right? The obligatory, I'm fine, I'm great, or, who wants to hear me complain, right? That kind of stuff. So, whatever emotion you're having when someone says, "How are you?" is right, whatever that reaction is. So I'm trying to ask people if they're hydrated, and I forgot to bring water into the studio. Stay hydrated, folks, for all the reasons. It's good for you. It's cold out, so it's better to keep making sure you have fluids going, especially when you're out in the cold and you come into the heated areas. Fortunately, the temperature is rising a little bit. Still cold, so please take care of yourselves. I asked at the beginning of the week, what are the two things that you think are top line for you? Like, in other words, I am working very hard not to react to every single thing. I kind of have narrowed down my sources on social media who I'll turn to see what's going on. And one of them is Aaron Parnas. I think I've mentioned this before. He'll break down some big breaking news. And there's a lot of montage videos where it's just his voice saying, "We have breaking news." Every video he has, he says, "We have some breaking news." And he'll, unfortunately, he'll say, "We have some tragic news," when there's a plane crash or something catastrophic has happened. But there are montages of people like just constantly hearing Aaron Parnas deliver news. And so I kind of catch those stories. There's another social media creator who I really enjoy, and she's a former military, a former Republican, and it's called her account, I believe, is called Call Out Camp. And so she's got a lot of rage. So she's a commentator. She's not the same as Aaron. Aaron is kind of breaking down the things he thinks are most important at the moment. And he does about three Instagrams a day. And at the end of the day, he'll do a YouTube video it's only about 5 to 7 minutes. He's also on Substack. So those are the accounts that I kind of, I guess, pay closer attention. Some other folks kind of filter through. But I think for me, now it's Friday. I asked on Monday, what are your two things that you're trying to focus your energy on if that's what you're going to react to rather than every single thing? For me, it continues to be the Doge bags, these muskrats. I heard someone call them muskrats, the little boys that are running around in the Treasury and Social Security and Medicaid and going through all these computer programs to see, to just fish around and see what can be cut, what can be slashed, what can be basically chiseled away with a sledgehammer, when really there's so much. I get that the Republicans feel like we spend too much money on touchy-feely things like helping people, making sure that senior citizens maybe have a meal for the day or some respite care, maybe some in-home care. And I know that they really hate that people with disabilities have support services to make sure that they are cared for. I know that they absolutely hate childcare because they want women to stay home once they've had a kid. They don't think that we should be paying for childcare, and yet we live in a system where even two incomes is not enough to pay the mortgage, the car payments, the groceries, the property taxes or rent, whatever it is you're paying. And so, yeah, it's pretty crucial. And beyond it being economically necessary for most households to have two incomes from both parents, one of the things that was fought against so violently, really, in the 1970s against women's autonomy and abortion rights was this idea that feminism was a threat. And that's part of what galvanized so many of the conservatives and the religious extreme right, that feminism was going to destroy this country. And time again, the things that have fundamentally whittled away at the ability for working families to survive have been Republican policies. Under Reagan, the destabilization of union strength. And, somebody was texting the other day about like, oh, these union schlubs, you'll trust them over the CEO of some big corporation. Yeah. I'm gonna go with the guys who are out there doing the hard work and fighting to make sure that workplace safety is priority, making sure that people have a living wage and can retire in dignity, make sure they have access to healthcare. I'm gonna go with those guys, because the profits that companies make is not because they're working harder than the hardest labor. Do you think that Jeff Bezos is working harder every single day than one of his warehouse workers or one of his delivery people? What is it? How much harder is he working? Is he getting up at 5 a.m. to show up at work at 6 a.m. to a warehouse that doesn't even have any protocols for emergency evacuations in the case that a tornado comes and maybe destroys a building and someone dies because they wouldn't let them leave the floor? Tell me that Jeff Bezos is working harder than those folks in those warehouses, in those trucks, in all the supply chain elements of Amazon. Tell me that he's working harder every single day. That profit comes from the labor of every single person that is putting in the time, and your money that comes from your labor. I'm going to side on labor every single day of the week and twice on Sundays. I don't have to tell you about that. I am a strike captain here in Chicago for SAG-AFTRA, and I'm proud of the work that we did, and there's still more to do. But for me, it is everything that DOGE is doing to minimize what working Americans have been able to secure for themselves and their families and their communities. And like I said, every single time that those gains have been diminished, it has been by Republican policies. Ronald Reagan, he lowered the corporate tax rate. Folks, this Make America Great thing, but we've asked over and over again, when was it great? Because if you're going to say the 1950s, then that's post-World War II, when we sunk a ton of money into the post-World War II America, into the GI Bill, and the tax rate for the top earners, the billionaires, the uber wealthy, the millionaires at the time, would have been freaking over 90%. And I'm sure that they hated that. They were still wildly rich. It was John F. Kennedy who brought it down to about 74%, and it was Reagan who brought it down to about 24%. All those things that you loved about the 1950s, whether it was the highways, right? That came from the fact that we were capturing the overwhelming wealth that they were benefiting from, squeezing the work, the blood, sweat, and tears out of workers and their ability to make passive income. I mean, that's why so many of them now have all these accounts on the Cayman Islands. I think there's like some Midwestern, some state, I don't know if it's like North Dakota, there's like some tax safety state where they sink all their money because they can hide it there. They can hide their wealth, and they don't, like right now, how much is enough? Right? People have been telling me, oh, well, Elon Musk doesn't even have it. He's not even taking a salary. Of course he's not. Why would you take a 6-figure salary when you are taking billions of dollars in contracts and diverting tax cuts to the wealthiest? Come on now. You got, for those of you who've fallen for this, I get that you're not feeling it. Maybe you'll never feel it. Congratulations. I don't know if I said that right. But I didn't swear, right? No dump button. Okay. Congratulations that you and nobody you love will be affected. There are people who are finding out that their medication has gone from $6 a month to $80 a month. Is that the fraud that you were so excited about? That the caps on pharmaceuticals? Okay, there's so many things, you guys. The stupidity is so thick with these folks because, and it's not even, I think their stupidity is caused by their rage, their hatred for people who want to love the way they want to love, who they want to love, express themselves the way they want to. And here you are, I'm sure that your grandparents or your parents are just going to be fine. But if they're showing up at town halls like they did in Georgia last night, screaming at their elected, and they demand, he's like, and this guy in Georgia, if you haven't seen the town hall meeting, he was like, oh, well, this will all be settled in litigation. And they were not having it. They were like, no. Why are you letting this happen? Why do we have to litigate? Why do we have to fight in courts? Because if it goes to the Supreme Court, well, we know what's going to happen there. All right. The phone lines are open, 773-763-9278. And the text lines are open, too, 773-763-9278. Same number. And look forward to hearing from you. Oh, the phone lines are full. Oh, let's get to everybody. More after this on WCPT 820. Heartland Signal. Oh, first of all, this doesn't happen without our amazing sponsors. We want to thank Source Solar for their support, their sponsorship, making sure that we have what we need, and more importantly, making sure that customers are satisfied with having solar panels on their houses. So go to source.solar to find out how they can help you make that happen, because I know so many people have questions. If you go to the Patti Vasquez show page, you can see a link and more information about Source Solar. That's source.solar. In the weeks to come, we'll be talking to Pete and Warren about setting up an appointment for you, what it means to switch over to solar. And we look forward to those conversations. And I will be right back after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
Tonight on Democracy Now!
1 week ago, the Trump administration issued a 2-week ultimatum for all schools, universities, and colleges to end all DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives, or risk losing all their federal funding. Then, as Trump shares an illustration of himself wearing a crown and writes, "Long live the king," we'll speak with the Lever's David Sirota on how Trump has been ruling through executive orders and Doge.
All those stories and more tonight at 10 on WCPT 820. You're listening to WCPT 820 because facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or Pete.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for driving it home with us. I want to take a couple texts because I know that my friends are on hold, and I'm going to get to all of your phone calls, I promise. One of the listeners who joined our conversation here on our text screen, again, that's 773-763-9278. They're wondering if there's any news about the United States Postal Service. My son is a letter carrier, and he works very hard. Can an executive order place the USPS under the Commerce Department? And so this would be an executive branch takeover of the agency, which has been independent since 1970. And he, by the way, he did this during the swearing in of Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick, and he called the move a way to stop losses at the $78 billion a year age. I mean, again, this is another element that I've talked about a lot. Government is not a business. It is not intended to run at a profit. I don't know the ins and outs of the finances in the post office. If the idea that we would either, because it seems like a move, I think a lot of folks have talked about how it appears to be a move to privatize the post office. And so he talks about how the new head of commerce has a great business instinct, which is what we need, and we're looking at it, and we think we turn it around. But The post office, by the way, this is something that I think people don't understand, and I guess that was the whole idea of the Kevin Costner movie was The Postman, right? Which is that one of the last surviving elements of our country would be still the postman. The post office has been around since 1775. It was created by the Second Continental Congress in Philadelphia, and Benjamin Franklin was the first postmaster. We're big fans of Benjamin Franklin in our house, by the way, and just for a lot of reasons. Not just because he was an inventor, he was a philosopher, and just a remarkable career. I mean, I will say, well, someday we should get into the sort of creation of the idea of insurance, and it started with Benjamin Franklin and sort of everyone pooling their funds together, because there were so many fires. So the idea being, if there's a fire, we have resources to help rebuild and pay for the ability to put the fires out. At any rate, Congress named the post office an executive branch department, which changed after an 8-day postal strike in 1970. And President Nixon. So at least it's not one of those things where if a Democrat created it, we're going to destroy it, because that seems to be their MO at this point. But that was when it became a self-financing agency and an independent agency. It has struggled to stay afloat, which we all know. We've all been having it, but it's been struggling to stay afloat. How much was that a creation of who Trump put in that position? And this is why this is so horrific what's happening right now, because it's not just these decisions made on a day-to-day basis. You're like, well, hopefully we can put that back, or the courts will intercede. Hopefully we can put a stay, all these different things. It's that so many things now become entrenched in our way of life, and putting DeJoyce in has, I think, quantifiably diminished the power and the efficiency of the post office. At any rate, just I'm so sorry for your son. I don't know how long they've been with the post office, but that's a shame that so many people who work and serve for our federal government are incredibly vulnerable right now. So I don't have any more information, but when we do, we will have that conversation. Jim is on the line. Jim, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hi, Patty. You don't know how physically exhausting it is. Like Bezos, when you're interviewing people who are proficient at the Heimlich maneuver, that he doesn't choke on one of his meals that he eats, that's a long day for him. I mean, he's got to make sure these people, they have to demonstrate if he does choke on something, how would they go? Should he stand this way, and so on and so forth. So that can be very exhausting. But anyway, that's about as much work as they do. It's just staying alive. Staying alive is
Staying alive.
The only thing. Yep. Yeah, staying alive. That's the only thing they care about. Anyway, Stephen Miller, believe it or not, that loon bird is on today saying that the Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution says the president is omnipotent, that there is no such thing as public outcry, that the president himself is omnipotent. It's in the Constitution. Now, please believe me, Patty, I have never heard so much talk about a Constitution, and they completely ripped it up and destroyed it. I mean, My God, I was in school when I never heard that the Republicans had the right interpretation of the Constitution. I never heard a word of that in my civics classes.
Right.
Never.
I know.
But now they claim that they have complete, they're sacrosanct. We know what the Constitution is, and apparently these 6 Supreme Court judges know what the Constitution is. The rest of us don't know it, but they know it. Through some divine intervention, they were told that this is the Constitution. Well, that's what they're telling us anyway. This is incredible. But Stephen Miller, what a case he is. I mean, Joseph Goebbels and this guy, if they were going to, you don't have too much makeup. They actually look the same. They always look almost the same. That skinny, haunting, evil look on his face. But think about, if you ever think, I'm getting up there, Patty. Did I ever think I'd be talking about the 30s and the 20s?
Right? Oh, my God.
Yeah. And fascism in Spain, and one dictator in the United States, one person is going to define our happiness. He's going to define our happiness, which he doesn't even know the singlest thing about happiness. I never seen an individual that's so, I don't know what you would call it, but he certainly isn't invested in anybody's happiness, that's for sure. But anyway, Patty, we got to, I mean, I'm absolutely, every day is like a slob. You know, you got to look through. You can't find anybody who's playing with a full deck because, like Jim Lehrer, he was a terrific newscaster. And when Trump pulled that bit about grabbing women on a bus and saying those horrible things, he said, in my day, that would have eliminated him automatically.
Yeah.
It would have, because he did presidential debates, Patty. Very articulate gentleman who did ask really pertinent questions during the debate, not like we're eating cats and dogs. But we suffer through this, and the one question you got to ask yourself: why did 8 million Democrats stay home? Was TikTok that important to them that they saw images on TikTok that said "Stay home, stay home, stay home"? And again, Patty, we got to go back to we need a troll farm. We need a Democratic troll farm like the Russians have and the Republicans have mimicked. You know, do the same thing over the next 20 years. I won't be around, but your kids will be. And
yeah,
I mean, you know what I mean, Patty? That's the way I feel about it because they have to get some kind of information that makes some sense. That but think of this. Listen to some Parisians talking. No student death, health care,
right?
Elderly care. In fact, they're helped with their burial, and they were laughing about it. They said, "Well, the little bit of money we have, we can blow on a Friday night or a Saturday night, and we're not worried about it." I mean, that's the way to live, Patty. Money doesn't mean anything if you can't enjoy yourself. I mean, what's the point? What's the point? I mean, to them, money to them is everything. I've never seen it. Trump today said. I'll tell Canada. They'll hear things they'll never forget. I mean, the way he says it, like he is the one person on earth who can determine what is to be done. I mean, he's absolutely. I mean, the man has already broken every rule in our Constitution. He's broken every law in the place. And then you've got Kash Patel, the maniac who did the 1,000 Mules movie, taking over the FBI.
Yeah, no kidding. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, there's so many.
How crazy is that? I mean, think about it. Say you were working in the office. I'm working in the office. Young FBI guy. Glad to get it. Told my mom, I got a job in the FBI. Oh, Jim's got a job for the FBI. And I come in and he goes, I want you to investigate every Democrat within 50 blocks of this office. If you find anything about it, I mean, forget Republicans, they were off the list. But any Democrat, we're going to put them in jail and we're going to, I mean, come on. You know what I mean? But I think people are getting so mad now, Patty.
I don't know.
Even they're getting pretty mad. They're getting pretty mad, Patty.
Here's the thing. Here's my concern. It won't matter how mad they get because it might be too late. So I just
no. This is an experiment in terror. And please believe me, even all the experiments in terror didn't last long. I mean, Mussolini was hung upside down with his mistress. Hitler had to shoot himself in the bunker with his mistress, and Franco finally died. And as soon as Franco died, they went right back to the democratic system again, and it's still under the democratic system for the last 50 years. So anyway,
thanks,
Patty,
Jim.
You have a great weekend.
You too.
Have a great weekend, Patty. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Let's take a break here. When we come back, we do have a guest on the phone. I am going to get to all the phone calls on hold, but we're going to talk to a candidate. We're going to talk to an interview with independent candidate Laura Vitek, mayor of St. Charles. Is it Vitek? I'm going to ask her because I've talked to her before, and now I feel bad that I might have mangled her name. We'll take a break here and come back in just a moment. And Senator Dan Katowski, the CEO of Kids Above All, is going to join us in the studio in just a little bit as well, and we'll take all of your phone calls. So please be patient. More after this on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
Think Theory Radio.
We enter this world of hyper-reality. In case you didn't know, hyper-reality is the inability of consciousness to distinguish reality from a simulation of reality, especially in technologically advanced societies. The action of hyper-reality is to desire reality in an attempt to achieve that desire to fabricate a false reality that is to be consumed as real.
Think Theory Radio with Damian Perdue. Saturdays at 6 p.m. on WCPT 820. Alexa, play WCPT.
WCPT from TuneIn.
Hi, this is Patti Vasquez. We appreciate all our fans of Driving It Home, and your support of show sponsor Minocqua Brewing Company ensures that our important conversations continue right here on WCPT each weekday from 5 to 7 p.m. You can now find the Resistance IPA, Labor Lager, or the Resistance Pilsner beer at several Illinois locations, including Arminetti Wine and Spirits in Woodstock, Pineapple and Company in North Riverside, Lyons Beverage Depot in Arlington Heights, and MP's Liquor, Wine, and Beer in North Aurora. For a full list of Chicagoland locations, please visit MinocquaBrewingCompany.com. As always, please vote and drink responsibly.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
And one of the communities we want to talk about is the community of St. Charles, the city of St. Charles. Of course, such a vibrant, wonderful city. And joining us is Mayor of St. Charles, Laura Vidic, who is the independent candidate in this role. And now, do you guys do independent, or do you not do parties? Is it just
no parties?
No parties. Excellent. So how are you doing tonight, Mayor?
I'm great. How are you?
I really don't like the enthusiasm with which you responded to that. I should be asking people if they're hydrated. Are you hydrating?
I'm trying to, yes.
Yes.
It's Friday.
It's got to hydrate. Tell us a little, first of all, tell us a little bit about what's going on in St. Charles. I know you guys have done such great work there. What are some of the highlights you would like to share with our audience about what's going on there?
Sure. Well, in St. Charles, it's such a vibrant community, as you mentioned. There's so much to do in our downtown. We're a growing community, many businesses, restaurants, kind of what we like to call the mini Chicago in terms of great culinary experiences and just a lot to offer out here in the suburbs.
There really is. I mean, I wish that I could move. For various reasons, I have to stay in the city, but I think St. Charles would be at the top of the list. I think it goes like there, and I won't rank them, but like Niles and then St. Charles, like sort of somewhere real close, or else like all the way out there. Well, it really is beautiful. So tell us a little bit first of all about yourself for folks who maybe aren't familiar with you, because sometimes they'll see a name on a ballot and they'll be like, that sounds good, or she's doing a good job. But tell us more about yourself. I know we've covered this in the past, but where did you grow up?
Oh gosh, I grew up in a city called Alsip, Illinois, which is in the south suburbs. You're probably all familiar, and just worked my way through philanthropy. I do a lot in the philanthropic world and giving back to the community, and just thought I'd give politics a try. And I've been in the political realm for about 9 years now.
I don't think you just gave politics a try. If I recall, there was something going on in the community, and you're like, well, somebody should be taking care of that.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, we had some schools that were closing for, at the time, no reason. So I helped save a couple elementary schools in our community and was working towards that. And then just there aren't many females in politics here in St. Charles. We have one other female that sits on my city council, and I thought it was time to shake things up a little bit here.
I love that. And was it all you thought it would be?
Oh, it's a lot of work, but it's, it's really rewarding, and I like it. It's a good example for my children, too.
Now, how long have you been the mayor of St. Charles again?
I'm the mayor now for 4 years, and now I'm up for re-election.
And what does it look like going into this election? I mean, do you feel, obviously your first time, you've been through it, you've served, what are some of the things that you're hearing from constituents and what the lay of the land is in this race?
Well, it's really interesting because I think St. Charles is a changing community, and we have a lot of people here that are saying they're happy. So my question to my constituents is, why change? So the 4 years that I've been mayor, things have been growing and positive, and I want to keep that momentum going, and I feel like I'm the right person to do that.
And do you have any challengers?
Yes, Yes, I do. I have one opponent.
Okay. And so, like, in a race like this where you don't, like, stake out the territory of what, necessarily party politics, like, what are some of the things that you're hearing from constituents that you're striving to make sure that they feel confident in your reelection?
Yeah, so I've been doing I've had experience in the world of municipal government for over 8 years, and my opponent has 0 experience in municipal government. And I believe that experience in just serving as an alder person and now being mayor isn't super important to being a successful mayor and running a community. And so that's what I'm trying to remind people of, is that we're in a good place, and I've been doing this for quite some time, and there's a reason for that. So let's keep the momentum going.
Absolutely. And you're outdoor knocking, holding events and things like that. So are you?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
I know.
7 weeks of that now.
Yeah. So how much are national decisions at the federal level having an impact on how people react when you talk to them about running for re-election?
Oh gosh, all the time. I mean, it's a huge difference from when I ran 4 years ago. I think people are, the attitude of people is much different than it was before. The questions about party lines are always coming into play, and I think everyone's just a little unsure on what's going to happen over the next couple of years because so much is up in the air, and so people are nervous because we just don't know, even from a city level, how much funding or funding opportunities we have. And so there's a lot of uncertainty right now. And I think people are worried.
I would imagine, because it is so uncertain. And and we don't have to go into it because I know that this is sort of separate, because I always tell people that the electeds who will have the biggest impact on your life are the ones that are in your communities. Your alder people or city council, the school boards, the county boards, all those things are much more impactful than at the federal level. However, we are in different times right now. So I know people want to know whether or not the people who are, working for them locally have their best interest, because it's just very uncertain. And what do you say to them about making sure they have at least someone they can talk to about these issues?
Well, I think, as evidenced by who I am, in terms of, I don't necessarily shy away from social media. So when people, although I would say we're in kind of a weird place because people are much more apt to attack on social media, I do respond, and I think sometimes that catches people a little off guard. But I'm always open for discussion, because I feel like, that's what people are lacking. That's what people feel like they're missing, people that aren't necessarily going to respond to even those hard questions. And I've been doing that. And, it is this is the part of the world that I decided to enter. And, people do want somebody that can relate to them. I grew up in blue collar, world in Alsip, and here I am in St. Charles, and I feel like I'm relatable to a lot of people.
I love that. I want to introduce you. Our guest just came in the studio. My guest co-host tonight is Senator Dan Katowski, who served for several terms in the state General Assembly, and I know that he has a lot of experience about that, like being relatable, sir.
Sure.
So this is Laura Vidic.
I'm still trying to be relatable after all these years. Hi, Mayor. How are you?
Good. How are you, sir?
Good. I was thinking about when Patti asked you that question, when you go to the door and you ask people, what are they most concerned about? What's the top thing they're saying to you as the mayor?
Oh, gosh. I think people are just really concerned about how much is going to change. And, I think from a mayor perspective, it's a little different probably than at the level you're at, because, we don't get to make some of those federal decisions, but a lot of what we're able to do is dependent on funding. And I think people just really don't know what to say. They're just, a little bit worried about what the future has to hold for us all. So I try to be a little bit of a calming voice so that people realize that, we're doing the best we can to correct or help whatever may come.
Yeah, I think that's important to people. And I'm sure it's not necessarily a partisan election, right, when they're looking at it in your race. But you need to be a voice of calm. And I'm sure you have your position and your values that you've represented for years, and it's mattered a lot to people. I was just curious. It sounded to me like there's a sense of people feeling a great level of instability that's out there, and you're just like, look, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stay the course. Things have been going well in our town, and you're a big part of that story, I'm sure. But I don't know. I mean, there's so much to be worried about. There's so much. There's so many like shiny objects because every day it's something different and crazier. But just on the local level, I was just talking to our local mayor yesterday, and he was just talking about some of the issues that he's hearing about from people, and I think everyone's affected by instability, regular instability, no matter your party, right?
Yeah, and you're right. Anytime any decision or any discussion happens at the federal level, it sends our local levels into reaction mode, and we're having to gather resources to have those discussions. Even if something doesn't happen, you still have to spend the resources and time to figure out what you might do to react. That's time, that's taxpayer dollars, and that's a lot. That's a lot on a city to have to do.
I have to imagine, I know the senator ran into this as well, is the range of things that people come to you about, like, a street light, garbage cans, street noise. And you're like, okay, it's almost, and I get it, right? When they talk to you, they'll sort of like flood you with things. I try to impress upon folks. I get that you have a lot of things going on. You're frustrated about things. When you talk to an elected, do your best because they have so many people coming at them. Would you say that, like, trying to be measured, trying to be, calm and state your case in a way that is, at least you can have a conversation, right? Because you get people coming at you yelling, don't you?
Oh, that's most of the time. I mean, usually people don't come at you with a positive thing to say.
Oh, my God.
People react, and even in municipalities. I mean, our biggest issue is low voter turnout. About 10% to 15% of people vote. But they're voting because they're upset.
Right.
People aren't going to the polls when they're happy. Go to the polls when you're happy because your world may change.
Yes.
If you don't go.
Yeah. Is that what happened when, people weren't happy under Biden, but I guess they weren't angry. They weren't afraid enough, I guess.
So people don't, usually I'm not hearing from people unless they're upset.
Interesting. Yeah. That's a good point. Wow. How can people support your race? How can they get involved? Give us the pitch.
Oh, gosh. Okay. So, yes, go vote if you're in St. Charles, and of course vote for me. So if you're happy here and you want things to continue, I do need your vote. Votes do matter in municipal elections. I have plenty of events coming up, and you can read more about me at votevitech.com, and I can use your support. And I do want to hear from you, even if it's the negative. So thank you.
But take a breath, everybody. Little bit of honey. Just say it. A little bit of honey helps, goes a long way. Go in with a smile, even if it's an angry, like a dog baring its teeth smile. Just
it's so nice to see you. God.
Just take a breath, everybody. Thank you so much for your service, Mayor, and we wish you the very best. And and what day is the election?
Our election is April 1st, right during our spring break out here. So early voting starts March 7th.
Excellent. March 7th. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you so much, Mayor. Go get them.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Let's you too. We'll take a quick break here. We've got a bunch of callers. I promise I will get all these callers, Senator. So we've got to get through these calls.
Oh, cool.
All right. More to this on WC. Senator Dan Katowski, CEO of Kids Above All, joins us in studio.
Chicago's Progressive Talk, WCPT 820, where facts matter.
Patti Vasquez is taking your calls now at 773-763-9278. Driving it home with Patti Vasquez now on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us as we continue to drive it home. We have in studio with us guest co-hosting Senator Dan Katowski, the CEO of Kids Above All. We have a comedy night coming up in June, and so far we know it'll be me and comedian Paul Farvar will be on the show.
Awesome.
And then we'll have to figure out the other comics.
He's really funny.
He is very funny. And
as well are you, of course.
Oh, I appreciate that.
You're funny, but you're gifted in numerous ways.
Thank you.
Funny, smart, savvy.
Thank you.
Inspirational.
Let's see how much my listeners feel about that because they've been on hold forever. Let me get to Jeff and Elgin, who's been on hold the longest. We'll take your calls in the order they've been received. Hey, Jeff, how are you doing tonight?
You said you weren't supposed to ask that anymore. You're supposed to ask me.
Oh, yeah. Are you hydrating? Yeah, I have to remember. It's a habit. What's on your mind? Are you hydrating?
After that spiel, I am. I have a big jug of water right with me. After that spiel you gave at the beginning, that's the first thing Lady D asked me when I called. She's like, "How you doing?" And I'm like, "You're not supposed to ask that, Lady D." Which is funny because when I'm out in public with friends and stuff now, everyone's like, man, you're awfully quiet. Why are you so quiet? What's going on? And I'm like, because if I get started, I don't know if I'm going to stop.
Yeah.
It's like I felt 6 years ago when my parents died. I'm like, I don't want to start because I don't know if I'm going to stop. You know, like you open those floodgates and you're not sure where it's going to take you.
Yeah.
It's a lot of crazy going on in the world. But I'm glad you had a local mayor on. I'm from Elgin. And I wanted to do a plug for municipal elections, too. We have ours coming up also on April 1st. And people don't get involved enough in local stuff, and that's where the day-to-day things going on in your city are happening. They're the people that are fixing the lead water pipes. They're the people that are fixing the roads. They're the people that are deciding this school gets a remodel and this school doesn't this year, you know, all that stuff. It gets overlooked, but that's where so many of these people that are in state and federal positions now cut their teeth and got their start and have moved up. But they just don't get the attention, they don't get the media coverage, and they don't get the money dumped into the campaigns. So they kind of fly under the radar for a lot of folks. And as the mayor pointed out, you don't get the turnout. You don't get nearly as much turnout for municipal stuff. I feel like we always get the shaft because it's right after a presidential election year, and we end up like there's a huge amount of attrition for voters that actually will turn out again, 6 months later from a big November election. It's kind of rough. I wanted to ask your guest, though, since I didn't know he was going to be on, but I had the opportunity. When you're dealing with feedback from constituents, how do you sort out the noise, or what do you use to sort out the noise? Because there's people that have been part of a letter writing campaign by some sort of pressure group, and there's people that have, clicked to fill out, petitions and things that are auto-generated and whatever. And I'm sure your staff can get through that. But how do you what do you use like in your gut to sort of suss out what are the actual real issues for your constituents that really need your attention and really need your time?
That's a great question. So when I've been since I was in public office for 9 years, so I'm not currently a senator, but I'll tell you this. One of the things that I did is I would pick up the phone and talk to people directly. So when people reached out, and it was like a part of a blast email or a blast outreach, or I would call people and I said, hi, I'm Dan Katowski, it's your senator. Like, I didn't realize you were going to call me. I was like, well, you took the time to reach out. And I would reach out and I'd ask people what they cared about, what mattered to them, and I would listen. And I think part of the problem that we're going through right now in politics is there's sort of like this listening deficit. I think people are struggling because they're not taking time to ask people what really matters to them. And as a consequence, there's a disconnect. And when that conversation's not occurring, people go to where the void is. And they'll go to people who are just, they're saying things because it resonates with their anger, as opposed to resonating with both what they mostly care about and what they want to see happen. And so that was a big education for me, but it's just the matter of asking the questions and taking the time to listen, because 9 out of 10 times people don't feel like they're being listened to by someone who's in a position of influence. It's a big deal. And I think town hall meetings were an important part of that. We did those both in person, and also we did those kind of through the phone. We'd set up a teletown hall meetings. But I really prided myself, and a lot of people do it, just on picking up the phone, having a conversation, or going to someone's door and having a conversation, and not talking about myself first, but having the other person talk about themselves and what their need is. And that's how, I got a chance to bond with Patti, because I met her and I found out what matters to her. And I think that's important. I think right now I'm struggling because you're hearing messages coming in response to what's occurring with the current administration. And people are just saying in response to everything, but they're not talking about what people really care about. Still to this day, people say, well, at the end of the day, people are still struggling because they can't afford health care, and they're being bankrupted because they can't afford health care, and they can't take care of their parents at the end of their life because they can't afford end of life treatment and care, and they can't take care of their kids who have all sorts of different challenges. And so to me, it's very simple. I was just like, you know what? It's blocking and tackling. Pick up the phone, reach out, and listen to somebody.
Man, that sounds so reasonable. I will tell you, Jeff, that was actually how I was able to connect with people who had a really an important impact on my family's life. Was the senator had a town hall meeting in Schaumburg. That's how I met Juana Ponte from Community Activist, the Northwest Side Services, and we still work with them because but here's the thing. I think a lot of people don't understand the nature of what you're dealing with, and you can tell the story, but I brought my children with. And, it was clear. It was clear that Declan had severe challenges, and the way I had been treated on the phone by agencies, because here was what it came down to. I don't know if you remember what I testified, was that when I called to find out about services, the woman on the phone said, okay, well, is your son homeless? And I said, no. And she said, is he being abused? And I said, no. And she goes, well, unless he is homeless or abused, you don't qualify for services. You'll have to go into basically, wasn't it like a raffle? It's like a raffle. It's like a
right. Lottery.
It was a lottery. And I said, so I made her say it out loud. I said, so you're telling me if I beat my son and threw him out of the house, he would qualify for services? And she said, yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I said that at that hearing, and Juana Ponte said exactly what you're saying. I said, say it back to me. You need to beat your son and throw him out of the house in order for him to get services.
Right.
And that was that's how we were functioning. I mean, that's how a lot of people are still dealing with this. But go to those meetings, folks. Make them hear you. And not everyone's going to be and it wasn't even, the senator didn't connect us. It was a person from the agency who was embarrassed that his agency treated us that way.
Absolutely.
He had no idea.
Yeah.
They don't know.
Is that interesting? So it's almost, I always think about our experience, Patty, when we were campaigning on behalf of the vice president in Wisconsin, and what the experience was near the end, right? And what people were saying certain things, and I was like, oh, for some of these folks, it's too late because the conversation was too late.
Yeah.
And it's not too late right now. For preparing for the next couple of years, it's not too late to have these conversations. But the thing is, it feels like we're in the middle of this firefight and this tsunami. But right now, we just have to lay the groundwork for the future, and that's just ultimately trying our best to connect with people and find out what matters most to them, because that's the only way we're going to win people back.
Yep. Thanks, Jeff. You going to go to some of those meetings? Go to some of those town hall meetings in Elgin? Of course, Jeff.
Yeah, nice to meet you, Jeff.
Stay hydrated. Thanks. Let me take another call. We've got, let me get to Marty in Chicago. Marty, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hello there. Hi, Patty.
Hey.
Hi, Dan. Hi. And I am definitely hydrated drinking coffee, so I'm not sure if that counts or not.
It's a diuretic, but I didn't mean to say that to you. I don't know why I mentioned it. I apologize. Yes, it counts. It's made with water.
Did anyone catch that governor's conference today where Trump basically called out Governor Mills from Maine over the transgender, over his transgender banning transgender people from playing in sports or whatever dumb thing they're trying to do, and he's like, you're not going to get state funding. We are the law, and you're not going to get state funding if you're not going to comply with these. And it's like, well, we'll see you in court. I mean,
the governor of Maine said, I'll see you in court. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Marty.
Yeah.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah, exactly right. Governor Mills. I know. Just stand up. We'll see you in court. I mean, just to deny federal funding, deny Head Start program. All of the governor, all of the functions of government are just being completely dismantled. So, I applaud talking about local elections and grassroots efforts, because this is where it's got to start somewhere,
Yep.
It's I don't use that word loosely. It's such a terrorist move, to put people in this position. We've seen this before, chapter and verse. We saw it on the previous governor in Illinois.
Yeah.
Governor Rauner did that on Good Friday. He cut funding for kids with autism and epilepsy and developmental challenges on a Good Friday, and when he had the resources. So we've seen this playbook before: extract as much blood as possible, draw as much attention, and see if people are going to capitulate or fight back, and also see if you're going to bleed people dry. We've seen the playbook, right? And we know right now that the current administration has that they have something that they didn't have before. And under the previous years, it was just incompetence, right, and laziness. But they also had sort of a pseudo plan. Now they have a direct and a malicious plan to go after people and exact as much pain as possible. And so it doesn't surprise me. I love the courage of the governor of Maine and just saying, "Fine, we'll see you in court." But this is all part of their plan, and people just need to be prepared. And to talk about as it relates to people, not about so much when you're talking about services, it's a general amorphous conversation. It's like, here are the people, and here are the people who are suffering. Right? And here are the names of the people. Right. And here's where they live. And here are the names of their kids, right? And here's what they're enduring. And that's what we have to, this is how we have to fight back. So,
yep, I agree.
Hats off to this governor.
And I hope those folks can feel comfortable documenting what's happening, because now you have social media. I mean, there's a woman who was at an emergency room. She had an ectopic pregnancy, and they refused to give her care. And so she started documenting it. Document it, folks.
Yeah, 100%.
Show your bill. Show that you don't have care at home, that your prescription drugs are going up exponentially. You know, if you feel comfortable, grab a phone, document it, figure out how to get online and start sharing your stories, because there are other social media creators who will amplify that. They'll grab those stories and put it out there, because they're not going to have you testify. They've captured all three branches of the government. So it's up to us now. We are the journalists.
Yes, that's the best way of saying it. We are the journalists. We are the third estate, right?
We are the journalists. Thank you, Marty.
Thank you, guys. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you. Take care. So yeah, if you feel comfortable enough doing that, grab your phone, start just talking to your camera. I know I think that's going to be a big part of it. I have a lot more ideas. I'm going to tell you one off the air, but I have to go and take a break right now because we have Dan Schaefer, the editor and publisher of the Recombobulation Area out of Wisconsin, who catches up on all things Wisconsin.
Oh, awesome.
You're going to love this. He's great. Oh, I can't believe I haven't introduced you to him before. Well, let's go talk to him now. More in a moment on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal.
Because facts matter. You are listening to WCPT 820.
Driving it home with Patti Vasquez, Patti Vasquez.
From global conflicts to greenhouse gases, the folks refusing to wear masks says, and politicians getting caught grabbing asses says, she's driving it home with Patti Vasquez.
Thank you so much for joining us. Happy Friday. We want to say a special hello to our friends listening on KTNF AM 950 Minneapolis, St. Paul. We're so grateful to have you here. We're going to talk to Dan Schaefer from the Recombobulation Area in just a moment, and we'll get him on the phone and find out what's going on in Wisconsin. So Senator Dan Katowski is joining me in studio here at WCPT 820 in Chicago, and we want to thank our sponsor, Source Solar. We have a new sponsor. In addition to Kids Above All, we've got Source Solar. They do solar panels, of course, for residents. Like we always talk about, like a lot of people have questions about that. And so Source.Solar, they have done over 100,000 installations of solar panels. So you might have to reach out to them and see if your house is a good fit for solar electricity.
I've always wanted to do that.
Me too. I agree. I think we tried, and it was so confusing. And Pete is going to walk us through this. Pete and Warren are going to be joining us in the next few weeks to talk about that.
Oh, that'd be really cool.
I'm very excited. Senator Dan Katowski is the CEO of Kids Above All. They help make sure that families, and in particular children, are supported and can live their lives to their potential, live happy, healthy, and safe lives. So thank you for the work that you guys do. I'm excited to do the comedy show coming up in June with Paul Farvar and other guests to be named.
Well, now more than ever, we need people to get involved and participate, because, kids and families who've been impacted by poverty, violence, and injustice are going through a lot. There's a lot of trauma that they're facing over and above what they were already enduring. There's much more unpredictability. There's much more of a lack of concern on behalf of some folks. So they need our help. And they need people to step up and get involved. And the comedy show that you do each year raise a lot of funds, and it makes sure there's more investment so that young people have been impacted by trauma can become independent adults who lead meaningful, productive lives. So I thank you for that, Patty. It's been a big support, big benefit to our kids and families.
Absolutely. And folks don't have to wait to the comedy fundraiser. They can go to kidsaboveall.org and find out how they can get involved. And you can donate your time, your resources, and stay up to date on all the great events they have throughout the year. Joining us on the line is Dan Schaefer, the publisher, editor, writer for the Recombobulation Area. He's also the political editor for Civic Media. And I want to introduce you to Dan Katowski. He is our guest co-host. He's a former state senator and a CEO of an organization that helps kids with Kids Above All. Dan, are you staying hydrated? I'm not asking people how they're doing anymore. I just want to know if you're hydrated.
Yeah, I guess, we all know how we're doing, I guess, these days. But, yes, I'm doing my best to stay hydrated. Yeah.
Yeah, stay hydrated. That's the only thing I can do for folks, regardless.
That's good. Well, good to meet another Dan as well. Every time I join the show, there's another Dan I get to meet.
It's nice to meet you, Dan.
Yeah, there you go.
Do your friends call you Dan, or do your friends call you Daniel or Danny? Is there a range?
It's usually Dan. Or a lot of people call me by my last name.
Schaefer.
Oh, they do.
Like a lot of people just go with Schaefer. Yeah.
Okay.
How many people call you Kodo? Because it's funny when I start texting your name, typing in your name, I think Kodo. And
a lot.
Yeah, a lot of people call you
Kodo. It's D Kodo. That's the nickname. That's D Kodo. Well, my brothers was J Kodo, D Kodo, M Kodo, and you probably listen to this story is completely uninteresting to you, Dan, but it's interesting to me. And Patty. Anyways, I was thinking of people you grow up with and how you refer to. When I was a kid, most of my guys I knew growing up, they call me Danny. And my
I hear people call you Danny all the time.
Yeah. And but Dan, it sounds like they went to Schaefer right away.
Schaefer?
They just leapfrogged Dan, went right to Schaefer.
Usually either just Dan or Schaefer, or some choice nicknames that friends might have.
Oh, really?
But,
wow, that perked our interest.
All right, interesting. So I see that Musk has been interested in the Supreme Court race of Wisconsin, pouring a couple bills here and there.
Yep, that has been one of the big news items this week in our fair state up here in Wisconsin. We've got this state Supreme Court race. It's right around the corner, less than 40 days away now. And no surprise to really anyone who's been following this stuff. But there's going to be a whole lot of money poured into this race. 2 years ago, when the balance of power of the court was on the line, it became the most expensive state court race in American history, and this year looks to dwarf that yet again. So I think it was somewhere in the range of like $55 million spent on the race 2 years ago, and now with Musk lining up some of the dollars, some of the typical big spenders on the right side of the aisle. The U lines always are big spenders in Wisconsin statewide elections, and then of course we're getting some donations on the left as well, including from George Soros and from your governor in Illinois. J.B. Pritzker put up about $1 million, I saw, for Wisconsin Democrats as well. So there's going to be a whole lot of money coming to this. But Elon, I think, is, given that he is, kind of running the federal government, seems like right now.
Yep.
It seems like a pretty big deal that he is wading into the Wisconsin race in a big way.
Yikes. We are going to, by the way, Fibs for Wisconsin will be riding again next Saturday. We're going to go door knocking in Wisconsin. So we'll be up there. It's not just because I like the brat stop. I want that to be clear to everybody. I do believe in making sure that the Supreme Court, because it's about, again, it goes to voters' rights, it goes to abortion care, it goes to funding programs. What is your budget surplus up to now? About $4.5 billion in Wisconsin. That's just. Yeah,
I think the latest numbers were $4.3 billion in Wisconsin that the Republicans in the state legislature have been sitting on for years and years, even as school districts across the state go to referenda after referendum. So it's quite the dynamic that we have here in state politics.
Yeah, that's the thing is that, the money that has been diverted from the public school system to charter schools, parochial schools, and then forcing these communities to go to referendum, it doesn't seem like it continues to not sink in for voters that it's because of what Republicans are doing in Madison, is it?
No, and last year we had a record number of referenda, mostly for schools, also there's a lot of, just kind of like local government, county, municipal government funding projects that, have been going to referendum. And we just had one in it ended up being part of the spring primary that we had just this past week, where one rural school district had to vote to essentially continue to be a school district. They were saying that without, the referendum funding that they were asking for, that they were going to have to fold into, another school district or dissolve entirely, which, obviously not great. And so there's a number, I think looking ahead to, that April 1st election, not only is the Wisconsin Supreme Court race is going to be on the ballot statewide, but there's a state superintendent race. There is a constitutional amendment that's going to be on the ballot. And I think there are close to 100 different referenda happening around the state, too, because, you guys might have different kind of budget problems in Illinois. But in Wisconsin, we have this huge state surplus that Republicans have been sitting on forever, and places all over the state at the local level having to vote to raise their own property taxes, in many cases, to just keep the lights on in many of these school districts and local governments and what have you. So, it's the latest kind of Republican shell game that we're seeing play out in the state of Wisconsin.
How are you best getting to a place where you can connect with voters? What is it about what you're doing that's helping to connect with them and getting them to come out and participate? I had a great experience campaigning in Wisconsin a lot with in Kenosha and Racine prior to the presidential election. But what are you doing that's going to allow the best connection with voters? That's going to make sure that people are going to come out and participate.
Yeah, I think, it starts with having to find ways to reach people where they are, in so many different instances. There's so many different ways that you can reach people these days, whether it's the conventional ways of TV ads or door knocking or whatever. But I think it's part of it is just having you can have some unconventional ways to get people's attention, be it on social media, other ways and what have you. I think it has to be just kind of this everything everywhere all at once type of strategy, because people just the way people consume information, the way people have different political dialogues is changing so significantly, and I think you just have to be creative in ways to get people's attention.
Yeah, more so than ever, right?
Right now in this day and age, the attention economy is everything, and I think so much of what's happening right now is, those on the right, the Donald Trumps and Elon Musks of the world, they're not very good at governing, but they're very good at getting people's attention.
That's such a good point.
I do wonder if that's going to be, a factor in this campaign. If you're having these debates on the terms set by the right, set by those who are getting people's attention, I think that could prove to be a little bit problematic at times. So I think, we're seeing some instances where people are starting to, find ways to get people's attention. We just saw, actually, just within the past 24 hours, there was a town hall for a Republican congressman in a very red district that had, a number of people, hundreds of people show up at that town hall and effectively protest what Donald Trump and Elon Musk have been doing at the federal level. So, and that really grabbed a lot of people's attention. That seems to be, kind of making some waves in national political news. So I think, getting people's attention in a day and age where, our attention is so fragmented, I think is just incredibly important for these campaigns.
Such an important point to raise, Dan, because I think, speaking as someone who made his living at the door, and I mean, in terms of connecting with the people that I represented, it was very interesting to see now that, what's the best way to connect with people. And there was, at the time we were experimenting with things. And like I said, we had teletown hall meetings or in-person town halls, whatever, but, door to door and regular conversations we have. But how do you start to reclaim an area that obviously the Republicans are very good at? And they're very good at all these different these vehicles they're using through social media. They're connecting with people. And I like that Blue Sky has made there's a freight, and Blue Sky has grown considerably. But it's also an echo chamber. You don't want, but it's meaningful, right? It's positive. But you're like, how do you really start to translate into people participating and voting, and grab people's attention? Like you said, how do you get people's attention? Because maybe that's the thing. Is like, first and foremost, how am I to grab people's attention? Because you don't want X to dictate the story, right? To own the news cycle. And it's obviously it's the mouthpiece for the current president. It's the mouthpiece for Musk. It's the mouthpiece for them, and that's what they're filling in this void. And how do you counter that void? Yeah. So it sounds like you're doing some good work on that front.
Well, I think too, you're talking about people on Blue Sky. I think that's the people on Blue Sky. I think it's a very engaged electorate, right? It's a very engaged people who are very engaged with politics and very engaged on the issues. And I think the challenge that I think those on the left and Democrats are having right now is reaching people who are not especially politically engaged. And this is something I wrote about not too long ago at the Recombobulation area. In Wisconsin, in the last election, in the presidential election, Donald Trump increased his vote share in all 72 counties. And he now has the record for the highest popular vote total ever in the state of Wisconsin, beating Barack Obama in 2008, much to my millennial liberal chagrin. I think what has been effective is that they have been able to do a better job than those on the left of reaching people who are not necessarily part of the normal political news cycle. And I think that is something that Democrats have to recognize. As they go forward, as they compete for these voters, the quote unquote low propensity voters who might not show up in every election. But I think that is just becoming a really important constituency. In these statewide elections, like we're looking at in Wisconsin in just a few weeks.
So, what did you attribute, like the drop off? The people who voted for the current president. And that's the theme here. I don't use his name. The current president, and the drop off from those who voted for him, and then those who voted for Tammy Baldwin, right, for senator.
It's so fascinating.
What is it? The drop off said, I'm just going to go in and I'm just going to pull. I mean, it's so mystifying to me that someone would go into a polling place, say, I'm just going to vote for president, and I'm just going to walk out, and I'm not going to vote further down the ticket. Right. So what do you attribute that to? Have you done a dive into that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different factors with that. One is that there was a third party right-wing candidate that was propped up in the race, and he kind of, he won some votes. There was a libertarian candidate who won some votes, but I think those on the right in Wisconsin, Republicans in Wisconsin, are attributing the Senate race loss, that them losing that Senate race to Tammy Baldwin, to the third party candidates, to the addition of those third party candidates, which I think is an oversimplification of what's happening, because I think Baldwin, she's a really interesting senator in a lot of ways, and I think her hallmark is not necessarily some sort of sparkling speech or getting up on the stump or anything like that, but she's great with constituent services, and she's really good at reaching out to rural areas and other parts of the state that might be very red and that might not support her, but the margins that she does better than just about any other Wisconsin Democrat in some of those more rural areas of the state. And I think that's just, you can attribute that. It's kind of a boring answer, but it's just, you can attribute that to just how much work she's done as a senator and on her record. It's not some sort of flashy, flashy thing that's one particular issue that stood out or whatever it might be. It's just the work that she's done over a really long time of serving the public in Wisconsin.
Yeah, I think. By the way, we've been in some of those rural areas. We were out there. There was one night where I was like, "What are we doing out here? Do we belong on this dirt road?" But
it was awesome though.
It was
too.
Amazing. Yes.
I had such a good time for people who are addicted to door knocking, right? Like going on people's porches and it's absolutely dark in the middle of nowhere, and they're like, and it was part that was a lingering question: are we going to survive? And that made it that much more exciting. But I mean, there was something beautiful about connecting with people at their houses in the middle of nowhere, and just having that conversation. But it's just like I thank you Dan for that answer. And the boring answer is sometimes the best because people are looking for, well, what's the silver bullet on this? And you're saying, well, it's quite frankly, she connected with people and she reached out to people who were otherwise may not have been felt like they were getting the attention. And I think if, like anything, if you had any sort of approach for the future of the party to connect people, what would you say? Who should you reach out to first? Who would you say that, Dan? What's a group to reach out to first?
For Wisconsin?
Yeah. And then the U.S.
Oh, that's a great question. I really don't know. I don't think there's any one group that you should say that's like, oh, this is the people who have everything figured out. I just don't think we're at that moment right now. But I do think there are some instructive things from Tammy Baldwin's victory last year and some of the approaches that she's taken and some of the people that have, overperformed in Wisconsin in the past about, just kind of, I don't know, it's saying what they believe saying things with your chest, right? Really saying it and meaning it. And I think there are some folks on the left who can get a little bit wishy-washy with certain issues. But I think Baldwin had a number of moments last year where she, really stood firm in the face of certain attacks and whatever. And I think we're seeing that in her, as she's been reelected, there's been a lot of Democrats who sided with Republicans on a couple of immigration bills a few weeks ago, like that Laken-Riley Act that saw a lot of kind of swing state Democrats capitulate and side with Republicans to get that bill passed. Well, Baldwin was one of the few, maybe the only swing state Democrat to vote against it because she, really looked into it. And it was, we interviewed her for something on Civic Media, and she, talked about some of the complexities of the bills and why she wasn't going to support it, and she eventually did. And I think it's, it's important to stand for something, right? It's, I think that's it. And nobody really has all of the answers right now going forward, of course. But
what?
I think it's important to recognize when people just speak with their values and vote with their values.
Well, I'm so grateful for your insight. That's Dan Schaefer, the publisher, writer, editor of The Recombobulation Area. You can subscribe to his Substack. Follow him on Blue Sky. When you subscribe to the Substack, be a paid subscriber to support the work that he and local journalists are doing to make sure these stories are covered. And he's also the political editor for Civic Media, Wisconsin radio, whatever. Just teasing. Fibs for Wisconsin. We're going to ride again next week, Dan. So I'll touch base with you whatever day works for you. All right. Be well. Have a great weekend.
All right. Thanks so much.
Nice to meet you, Dan.
Thank you. Let's take a quick break here. We'll come back. I think we can take one phone call when we come back, and then we have to go to another break, and it's a thing.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Weird. Say that. I'll be your pit bull. We'll have to hear. We're going to come to this a little bit. We have some phone calls when we come back from the next break because I kind of have a quick turnaround here. But I was talking to the senator off the air. Senator Katowski served for 9 years in our state legislature here in Illinois and is now the CEO and executive director of Kids Above All. And and I know a lot of people are feeling this way, that people need to know the Democrats are out there fighting. And there was a protest against Hakeem Jeffries yesterday. There were lots of people he was at a book event and acting like he's on vacation, and people are scared. They're terrified. He's like, suing my book. I mean, people are ticked off, man. Anyway, I'll be your pit bull, folks.
It's that's what it should be on all sorts of T-shirts out there.
I'll be your pit bull.
Pitbull. Patti Vasquez.
Well, that's what I did.
Well, that's the thing, though. But I think there is a cognition right now from people and saying, what about all this that's going on? And here's the thing is, let's have the conversation about the people who are affected and make sure that it's meaningful. One of the things that we're going to do at our organization is start talking about, we have this campaign that we're launching. It's like this Did You Know campaign.
Oh.
Right? Did you know that we impact, there are 50 young adults who are homeless that we provide housing to in the city of Chicago, ages 18 to 24, who need housing because they don't have a family to go to, or they've been rejected from their families because of their sexual orientation or identity. And we make sure they have a safe place to live, and that they get case management and connected vocational training and job opportunities and the like. But it's like, did you know? And the thing is, it's a
great campaign
supported by the government. Yep. It's supported by the federal government, and it's been a successful program. And I don't think a lot of people know what the government does.
Well, let's talk about that when we come back with our listeners. We had some calls on hold. I promised everyone I would get to them. So let's take a break. And by the way, I'm going to start a campaign to target towards Republicans. It's called That's Not What's Happening! More to this.
WCPT 820, Chicago's progressive talk, where facts matter.
Listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez.
In your communities, in Chicago.
On WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for joining us. I think it's fair to say that Senator Katowski and I are both the pit bulls that you want in your corner. I mean, like, you were so ferocious when you were in Springfield. It was fantastic. I mean, like, I would not want to get into your crosshairs in Springfield. That's all I'm saying.
You know, I think that's why we worked well together.
Yeah.
Because there's just certain things. There's certain hills you need to die on.
Yeah.
And right now there's a lot of them.
Well,
and
the hill I have to die on is that Steve in Des Plaines has been on hold for an hour and 21 minutes.
Des Plaines, love Des Plaines.
We're taking your calls in the order they've come in. Hey, Steve, are you staying hydrated?
I'm staying hydrated. I've got a bottle of Diet Dr. Pepper here that I'm almost done. And I've got another 6-pack of that stuff in the fridge.
Nice.
Thank you for taking my call, because I'm so ticked off and pissed and frustrated and disgusted, in particularly with the Ukraine situation. Okay? That traitor-in-chief sold us down the river, and ostensibly he has destroyed NATO, at least from the Americans' perspective. Now, I was in the Marines. My nephew was in the Marines. My brother was in the Marines. My father was in the South Pacific dodging kamikaze planes. And I've got pictures that he took of planes coming at his ship. So this is the soil that I grew up in. I grew up in a neighborhood in Warren Grove, dead-end street, Alcott. Every father was a World War II vet. Jumped into Normandy, submariner. Bill Burnap at the corner of the block got his legs almost cut up by a machine gun. So this is the soil I've come out of. And I'm so disgusted with America right now. I tell you, I was rooting for Canada in the hockey championship. I don't know if you saw that. Canada didn't win the game.
Those fights, man, those were insane.
I mean, forgive me. I'm not patriotic right now. I'm disgusted. You know, it's funny. All these like Hegseth, these and all the rest of these alpha hotels. I mean, they wave the flag. They do this and they talk all this crap. And they are what I call popcorn patriots, peddling a brand of bubblegum patriotism that's got nothing to do with anything of any value, anything good. So anyway, thank you. I needed to get that off my chest.
I love it, Steve. Are you going to have a good weekend? What's your plan for the weekend to take care of yourself?
Well, I'm studying. I'm the one that I've gone back to
school at Northeastern. Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, 71 years old. I took my first test in 45 years.
Wow.
Let's go.
And I'm taking history and poli-sci. I want to maybe be a substitute teacher when I get out there, because I'm a bricklayer by trade, and it's starting to get old. I'm 71, and I took my first test in 45 years, and I got 88 out of 100.
Oh,
so
right. Let's go.
Hey, that's amazing. Congratulations.
Yeah, so I'm excited. Yeah, I'm thinking maybe Maybe I would go on and get a certificate to teach regular high school.
Nice.
But yeah, a late life. I'm in the fourth quarter of life. I don't have a whole lot of time left, but I want to fill it with some good stuff and actually, I'm thinking possibly maybe running for some office. I have no idea what form that would take. I don't have a clue. Maybe work for a congressman.
He's in Des Plaines, sir. So yeah.
There's all sorts of things you can run for. You can run for alderman. You can run for the park board. You can run for Oakton Community College. They have a board that you can run for. There's all state reps, whatever you want to run for. I mean, but I think what's important, Steve, is I don't think we hear enough from people who are who've given their time and their service to our country. Wonderful people like you who have an opinion about the direction of our country. We don't hear enough. We hear from people who are, like you said, who are posers. And you're someone who's actually know people, and you come from that. You say, this is my soil that I come from, right? And this is what you're raised, and you're raised in these values. And we don't hear enough. And the media doesn't show, your story enough because it's so frustrating because the people they show are the ones with the tattoos, and they've never really served much or done much of anything. And there's a lot of people.
Off facade.
Yeah.
So popcorn and bubble gum. That's all that is.
Yep.
Yeah. I'll say one last thing, and thank you very much for the opportunity that I have taken off the gloves. They're off. I completely unlaced them. They're off. The gloves are off, and I'm throwing them away. So I can't put them back on. That's where I'm at. And I may get myself in trouble because I've noticed that I've been saying I comment. I see someone say something, and there's only two people that will escape my wrath. My two sisters, the only family I left on this planet. They're both Trumpers, but I think they could be won over. I'll modulate my tone because of respect for my two sisters, and that's it. Everybody else is getting no quarter. I'm giving no quarter. Asking no quarter.
Excellent.
So anyway.
Thanks, Steve. You're great. I love hearing from you, my friend. Take care. Thank you.
All right, guys. Take care. Bye.
According to one of the social media content creators I follow, New York Attorney General Letitia James just won a court ruling blocking Doge and Elon Musk from accessing private data and federal funds. So we'll find out more about that as we go on. Let's get to our next longest caller. Your calls are being answered in the order they were received. Steve in Chicago, you're on with me and State Senator Dan Katowski, now the CEO and Executive Director of Kids Above All. What's on your mind, Steve?
I wanted to circle back on your first topic from the night about the post office.
Yes, we were talking about yes.
It's important whenever they say, the post office is losing money, they're short of money, da-da-da-da. You have to remember that way back, and this actually was done even before Trump got into the office, but Republicans for years have wanted to privatize the post office.
Yep.
One of the things they did a while back is they put into law requirement that the post office pre-fund their retirement plan by decades, far longer than any other organization has to fund their retirement plan. So they have this huge debt, this huge pot of money that they can't get to. And that's why the post office is always running short of money, because they've been forced to put aside this money that, just to keep them poor. Because the Republicans, again, for one thing, cannot stand to see anything that is not turning a profit for the private market.
Yep.
But also, they recognize that the post office has always been a way for people to communicate with each other.
And to get mail-in ballots in.
And exactly, and that was my other point. And then more and more recently, because I think they started doing that even before they started to realize, and we've got to get the post office because everybody's shifting to mail-in ballots. If we can control the post office, we can control the balloting process.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you for the insight. I appreciate it. Thank you for holding on for so long. It's good to hear from you, my friend.
Go downstairs and get a bottle of wine so I can hydrate.
Go hydrate.
You say hydrate with wine, right?
That's right. Hey, make sure you're also having some water.
That's right. Water.
Thanks. Thanks, Steve.
Isn't that interesting, though? I think you have more calls, right?
Yep.
I was just real quickly. It's like I think Democrats can't be afraid, though, of embracing opportunities to reform how money's spent.
Right.
Because not every dollar that's spent is being spent in an effective way, in a way that makes a difference in people's lives, right?
Yeah.
And it's okay. You don't have to be the great defender of the government and what it's spending, right? And it's not even like, if it's not making a difference, right? And it's so, or to analyze it and evaluate, open it up for scrutiny. It's fine because if we want money to go towards people who are making a difference or service and programs, we got to be able to say, like, here's something that isn't.
I don't think I've told you this since we haven't seen each other for a while. I got it stuck in my head that someday I want to grow up and be the Illinois state auditor. I would, because I think I've told you about programs that I was in when Declan was little. That I could tell. I mean, I filed a complaint with the state of Illinois about the waste and fraud, like the way they were running things at one of the organizations. It's kind of one of the ways we ended up connecting. Yeah.
Wouldn't you do it in your own house? I mean, if there's like, right, if you're, if Steve was,
and that place continues to do business. Money, I don't like they. What do you do with the money? Let me take who's been on hold the longest. We've got Roosevelt. Roosevelt, you're on with me and Dan Katowski. What's on your mind, my friend?
Patty and Dan, thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
Are you hydrating?
Oh, definitely. I'm drinking both coffee and my diet drink.
Excellent. So. Everyone's drinking diet drinks. What's on your mind, my friend?
Okay. What's on my mind is something that hardly is ever brought up, if it was ever brought up on any station, and that is this. So is this going to be the new American way, to be like Trump? So what kind of an effect, long-lasting effect, for those young people that are being raised in the era of Trump, both eras, both presidencies, what kind of a long-lasting effect is it going to have as far as their lives? Are they going to be influenced by all this negative way of being a human? Because he's not human. Let's face it, he's not human. So that's my point. My
point not humane. That's certainly true. Well, let's talk about it. So thank you, Roosevelt. I've got a lot of calls. I've got a couple more calls. So we'll talk about that issue. I think that look, our boys are older. Senator, you and I have boys that are in college age and beyond.
Right.
But I think he brings up a good point. Not just like what the impact on our kids. Right. I still remember being in college or grad school when we were talking about cigars and stains on dresses in the Oval Office. Like that was bizarre. Right. It was so strange that that was part of the news cycle. Like I thought that was going to be the weirdest thing I was going to see in my lifetime. Right?
Yes.
It was like where a cigar went. This is insane. And it was the minute he won, like our boys were teenagers. That was hard to go through. That this is what Americans wanted, was somebody to behave this way.
You know, and there's two thoughts I always have to that. And one of the things I think we've discussed before is that, President Clinton sort of, planted the seed, for lack of a better word, on acceptance for this type of behavior, because people sort of apologized for it. And then again, it also reminds you that it's not important to the American people what happens in people's private lives.
Right.
What matters is this person connecting to me in my life. Right? And that's sort of the lesson that was kind of lost. But I go back to what my son Cooper had said after Trump won. He's like, Dad, I just don't understand. How could people vote for this man? He said, he's obviously a bad man. And he's 34 felonies. He's sexually violated women. He's like, how could people ever support him? He was so mystified. He was so upset and so bothered. It is like, and to the previous caller's contention, is this our new normal where we're going to, it's one thing to accept, like to have somebody who makes a decision and they make a bad decision in their person, but the repeatedly poor decision, but who also treats people so poorly, so inhumanely.
And gets rewarded for it.
Yeah, and gets nothing but attention. And I think we've rewarded him by giving him so much attention. I think that, as I say, we collectively, I think the U.S. and the media and all that other stuff, by continually talking about what's so horrible about him, and we're so surprised and aghast. And they ask him a question, literally still to this day at the White House, the press corps will ask him a question, is like, do you really think this? And I'm like, why even go through that process? Right. It's like, so you obviously think this, I should say, so you think this, you think Zelensky's a dictator, or you think this, and just to go at it instead of like acting all mystified that this guy is going to be a certain way and do certain things. So anyways, I think about our kids and I think what they've grown up with, and it's bad enough that they've grown up with all these mass shootings, and that's like the new normal. And is the new normal people who just quite frankly lie all the time without any accountability whatsoever?
All right, we got to take a break.
Yeah.
I'm exhausted. Thanks for calling, Roosevelt. We're going to take another call when we come back on WCPT 820 Heartland Signal as we head into the home stretch with our friend Dan Katowski. More after this.
This is WCPT 820, where facts matter.
If you're listening to this station right now, you've definitely heard my voice before. Hi, I'm Hawk.
And I'm Pete. And we're with Source Solar, your local source for solar. Source Solar is Chicagoland's premier solar installer, providing solutions for over 1,000 homeowners and business owners across Illinois and Iowa.
With over a decade of industry experience and deep roots here in Chicago, we have the expertise to help your transition to clean, renewable, resilient energy.
We can guarantee that we save you money day one without any out-of-pocket cost to you. This means you have an instant ROI, instant payback, and can save money to add to your bottom line day one.
At Source Solar, we source everything as local as possible, meaning we always carry the Made in USA sticker.
Find us online at www.source.solar. Stop in our office at 5710 North Northwest Highway or give us a call at 773-985-3992.
And don't forget to ask for Hawk
or
and Pete.
You're listening to Driving It Home with Patti Vasquez on WCPT 820.
Thank you so much for driving it home with us as we head into the home stretch. Former State Senator Dan Katowski, the CEO and Executive Director of Kids Above All. You can go to kidsaboveall.org and support their mission to help kids live happy, healthy, safe lives. We have one more phone call. We've got Dave from Hoffman Estate, who has also been patient on the phone. Hey, Dave, what's on your mind, my friend?
Hey, Patty. Hey, Senator.
Hey.
Yeah, talking about like with the candidates and that. It always kind of reminds me of like that old parable of the grasshopper and ant. Where the Democrats seem to be a lot like the grasshopper in the summer, but the Republicans seem to be like that ant, where they just keep working right after the stuff. Where ours play around, they don't get serious till a few months before campaign time. And
interesting. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, and then saying, I need you to, to help me. I thought, well, that's what you said on the campaign trail. You're going to be our voice. You're going to help us if you get elected. But anyway, that's just my BB rattling around there. But what I was going to tell you, I was just reading a story where New York Governor Kathy Hochul has deployed National Guard troops to secure state-run prisons amid a wildcat strike by correction workers. And picketing and striking by correction officers took place at around 30 state prisons as of Wednesday morning. Hochul says the National Guard troops are being deployed but didn't specify where. Well, at least she's doing something there, because she sure as hell ain't done nothing on that case with that New York mayor who's guilty as hell.
I think that she's working on trying to figure out how to remove him. There's a legal path for her to do that. But I did not know about the strike. Thank you for letting me know. They're in their fifth day.
I always try to get some fresh stuff for you guys. I don't want to go down a beaten path that was talked about on Jones' show.
Gotcha. Thanks, Dave. Have a good night.
Have a good weekend.
You too. So we'll go ahead.
It just makes me think about how he's right about this, the grasshopper and the ant, because what the Republicans are very good at is they play the long game.
Yeah, we've talked about that.
Right? And it's like what they did with immigration is like, okay, they were playing the long game, and they were sending people on buses, in planes to sanctuary cities, and that was part of the long game. And they were gonna use that. They were going to use that issue, and they were going to make people afraid, and they were going to pit people against, people who are, communities that are historically impacted by poverty and violence against others. And it was just, it was a deliberate and it was a long-term approach to get their results. And they've done this for decades with all sorts of other issues. And you're seeing that, right now. I mean, the argument they've basically embraced for years is, how are we going to limit government? Like, government's bad. Right. And there's think tanks dedicated to wiping out government, because they got all bureaucracy. Like Elon Musk yesterday was like he had a chainsaw. He said, I'm taking a chainsaw for bureaucracy, not to bureaucracy, right?
Right.
If he was like, but the whole point is like they have a notion that all government spending is bad.
Yeah.
And it's like, and they've argued that. They've made that argument, but it's a long-term argument that they've made. And how do you minimize the size of government so that you can provide people with more, tax breaks, right?
Right.
It's like they always have like a three-legged stool: smaller government, less taxes, family values, and you saw it manifest itself in the last campaign. And I think what Democrats need to do a better job of is what's the long-term argument for long-term systemic impact, where people are like, oh, they get me, like they get what I'm talking about.
So what's our three-legged stool?
I think the big thing is like so much is connected to. I think is making sure people have the opportunity to have a decent quality of life, right? And that's connected to healthcare. And the number one cause of bankruptcy in the country is healthcare. Right. And under healthcare, it's like it can be, and it's mental health. It's direct healthcare treatment. It's the cost of medication, right? It's all of that that's under that. And it's not right. Healthcare is the number one cause of bankruptcy in the United States of America, still is. And Democrats should still own that and still embrace that. And I think also when I look at this, and our own Governor Pritzker said, small businesses are basically, they are the bedrock of our democracy, right? And doing whatever you can to help small businesses to thrive and flourish. And they end up becoming mid-sized to big businesses. Do whatever you can, right?
Right.
And I think then education is the third thing.
So healthcare, education,
and business and economy,
business.
right? It's like, what do you do? Those are three things I just think on the top of my head.
Well, I think that healthcare is a crisis of our generation, 1,000%. And that's you're right. It's rooted in so many of the other elements.
Yeah, and I think it's connected to everything. Yeah. And people talk about gender affirming care. That's right connected to healthcare.
So is abortion.
Healthcare. It's all in healthcare. And the fact is that there are people who are making a tremendous amount of money off of pain and suffering of others in the United States of America. That resonates with people in our country. They're like, great, that's wrong. I remember going to get medication for epilepsy, and month after month they were increasing costs, so the medication I was taking to keep me from having seizures was unaffordable.
Yeah.
So, like, what do they do? So how did I handle it? I was like, okay, I had to get switched over to a generic brand of that medication to make sure it was affordable, but there was a risk in whether or not I was going to start having seizures. Right? And thankfully I didn't. But that to me is like, what's the argument? And, and how do you get that argument to connect with people? And what are the issues that resonate? And I thought Vice President Harris did a great job in some of the states where that argument was there, right? It was about affordable health care. It was about going after the insurance companies and the pharmaceutical companies. And it was about giving people a chance to get the type of education they needed, either vocational or four-year schools, so they could be successful in life, right? That kind of stuff. And that's the bread and butter Democratic issues.
So is it because it's not just the Republicans play the long game, they also play the fear and anger game.
Yes.
So I think that it is like they're making your healthcare costs go up. They're making it hard for you to open a business or sustain your business, right? Your education suffers because they're diverting it to their own special interests in charter schools and whatever.
Yes.
So that it can't just be you're going to have this. It's that they're going to make it vulnerable. You're not going to be able to afford healthcare because that's what the thing is like fundamentally, quantifiably, we know that Republicans, whenever they're in control, diminish our ability to provide for our families and stay in our homes and have access to healthcare.
100%. I had a conversation with a guy yesterday, and he said, well, I'm going to just watch and see what happens because he's going to say, and I didn't say, what he said was, we're just going to have to deal with the pain right now. I said, you aren't.
Right.
And he was like,
exactly.
He's like, you're right. I said, you're not the one who's suffering. And there are people throughout a country who are suffering right now, and we need to be a voice for them.
Yes.
If we are not being a voice for them, then who is going to be a voice? But to your point that you were saying is they do operate by fear. They use fear very, very well. But what I also think the challenge with Democrats is we end up getting mixed up in that fear argument with them.
Right.
We end up talking about them.
Exactly. And we get defensive. Or
defensive.
We don't answer it. Answer the question you want to answer.
I will say something. If Joe Biden didn't debate Trump and he said, look, I'm not going to debate a criminal, I think he wins.
Okay. I'm going to take my emotional support dumpster fire Really, someone sent me this crocheted dumpster fire. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Please stay hydrated. Thank you to our sponsor, Source Solar. Go to source.solar for more information about their great work. Go to Kids Above All. Support their mission to help children live happy, healthy, safe lives. Randy Rhodes is up next. I don't have whiskey and cookie tonight, everybody. I'm not able to do that, so my apologies. I'm going home to my husband and having a nice dinner. Lady B, I love you. And tune in to Matt McNeil. I believe I'm on that show again tonight. You'll hear a different conversation altogether. Bye, everybody.